4 on the ground. Smith, a huge hole over the left side, showing the burners. Abram Smith, no one's gonna get him. Touchdown, DC Defenders.
Oh, got him.
That's why you. 14th play of the drive. Smith's in this time. Touchdown Renegades.
What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the OG XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of XFL News Hub, your alt football media guru, episode 190. It is the first time we have completed week 5 and not talking about something occurring and then the league shutting down a week later. So on this show, we're going to go over the stats and the power rankings. We have on the line coming up, we're going to go through the news. We've got Mike Mitchell, Pat Rafino, Anthony Miller, Evan Willsmore, all will be joining the program and taking your questions. So right now, in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, post your questions now to any one of those guys. Talk about the teams they cover, whatever you like. So what we're going to do is we'll go through the game scores, and then what we'll do is then we'll have these guys on the show. We're not going to do the press conferences and some of the other stuff because I want to get to these guys as much as we can. But we have that, your social media stuff, but basically it will be the news, reporter roundtable, and then we will keep going there. So if you want to be part of the show, you can either leave a message right now or you can contact us, podcast at XFL News Hub, with your thoughts, record an MP3 or video on your phone, and we'll play it on next week's show. Also, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. We always appreciate the nice, kind words from Apple Podcasts, yeah. And we are live, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Monday and Thursday on the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I got a family event this week, so I will not be able to do a live show. So Thursday is going to be a recorded show, but we'll go through the DFS. You definitely want to tune in. We missed the XFL ladder last week. We were talking about on Thursday. If you missed Thursday's show, $5 to $50,000. I explained the whole thing. We're going to restart the ladder because we had some upsets. So without further ado, let's just get into what's going on. Let's get to the scores, and then we'll get into the week that was the XFL. But in the meantime, make sure you leave your questions in the comments for our panel, as we'll get to them right after we do this. There we go. I got some new tools, too, to play with. After we go with, let's go review the scores. All right, first up, the upset of the weekend. Houston Roughnecks over Seattle Sea Dragons, 14-21. The Roughnecks are now 4-1. And America's team now leads the league at 5-0. We'll get to that in a little bit. Seattle Sea Dragons come back. They are now 3-2, so 14-21. I did not know that this was going to go this way. Brendan Silvers was 25 of 47, 227 yards, and a touchdown and a pick, only a 4.8 average per pass. Bracine Aileen, 5 carries for 35 yards, and Max Borghi, only 6 carries for 12 yards, but he did have a touchdown. He was coming back from injury. Justin Smith led the way, 3 catches for 63 yards and 4 targets. Travell Harris had 58 yards. Justin Smith also had a touchdown. Dante Burnett had 8 targets, 3 catches for 35. I felt that Brendan Silvers was overthrowing it a little much. And Jontre Kirkland injured his shoulder and was out. It kind of just threw them off the whole game. They just kind of weren't in sync. And I also felt that Brendan Silvers was kind of overthrowing at times. I mean, he's got a cannon, but he was overthrowing some guys a little bit too much for the Sea Dragons. Let's see here. Where is it? All right. Ben DiNucci, 17 of 32, 209 yards, 6.5 average, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Not the greatest game from him. I mean, he could throw 32 times for just 200 yards. On the ground, the team rushed for 88 yards. Morgan Ellison, only 15 yards, but Danucci and Darius Bradwell both had touchdowns on the ground. Ja'Cour Pearson, MVP? Is he an MVP guy? We'll talk to Mike Mitchell and the other guys about him. 5 catches for 82 yards on 8 targets. Damian Willis had 5 catches for 61 yards on 8 targets. Josh Gordon had 7 targets, but 2 catches for just 15 yards. This is the second week in a row that Josh Gordon has not been the guy like he was earlier. So we'll have to see how that changes this week. But Houston is coming to town, taking on your DC Defenders up next. So next up, DC Defenders, 28-20 over the Battlehawks. They're 5-0. Seattle. St. Louis is now 3-2. A good game all around. What this was the storyline? First of all, 35,000 at the game. Jordan Ta'amu, 12 of 18, 90 yards. Nothing going on there. Is this line? Abram Smith, 23 carries, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns, including a 70-yard long run. De'Ara King also rushed one on the ground. There you have it right there. Raquel Armstead was out, so they just gave Abram Smith the ball, and the rest is history. Not a big, huge passing game, but you didn't have to do anything because you got Abram Smith running all over the place. Lucky Jackson, 5 catches, 54 yards on 7 targets there. For the St. Louis Battlehawks, A.J. McCarron, 22 of 34, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Nothing. Brian Hill, still another good game. A guy to pick out, 14 carries for 79 yards. He had well on the ground. Hakeem Butler, 9 catches, 89 yards, 12 targets. 12 targets. Likes him a lot. In the passing game, Stephen Mitchell got 1 catch for 50 yards and a touchdown there. And George Campbell, 1 catch for 5 yards and a touchdown. Is this the playoffs? Is this going to be the playoffs? And we'll talk to our panel here in a second. But is this going to be the Northern Division playoffs? Or is Seattle going to be able to come and take St. Louis's spot? Can the DC Defenders hold on? I haven't really seen a huge, complete aerial attack by the DC Defenders, but their defense is good, and they run the ball. This is the game coming up this week, this Monday Night Football, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. DC Defenders taking on Houston Roughnecks, and I will tell you that I have friends going to the game. People are talking about it a lot more at the adult pub that I was at watching the game. People were interested in watching it and talking about it, so this is going to be a good game. Do you want to stay tuned for that this week? Orlando Guardians taking on the Vegas Vipers. Would you believe that this was I think this was the highest scoring game in XFL history? 32-35. Orlando Guardians losing to the Vipers. I picked the Vipers. I knew the Vipers would win. But does Orlando have a guy? Quentin Dormandy, 22 of 25, 256 yards, 10.2 average, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That is unheard of for a Guardians team. He should be the guy. He proved it. Jermaine Martin, 9 carries for 36 yards, a touchdown. Devin Darrington also had a touchdown. And Quentin Flowers seen a little playing time with a touchdown. The guy, Cody Latimer, you saw the catch. 8 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown on 8 targets. And, of course, Charleston Rambo, 5 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets. And Lance Lenoir, former USFL guy, 5 catches, 41 yards on 8 targets as well. Quentin Dormandy looked to be the guy to me. I don't know who else you're going to put out there. It's just now it's getting the defense in line. Like who we'll have to kind of see what's going on there. Luis Perez, 20 of 28, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns. I heard the guys on ESPN say that Brett Hundley was the highest paid player in the XFL. They said that on the XFL today. I don't know if that's true. We'll ask Mike Mitchell here in a minute. Rod Smith, 18 carries, 62 yards, and 2 touchdowns, so they got it on the ground. Jeff Badette, another guy, 5 catches, 80 yards on 2 touchdowns on 6 targets. And John Lovett also in the air. Jerome Allison, 6 catches also. And, hey, they did this without Martavius Bryant, who basically has done nothing for the team this year. So the toilet bowl, if you wanted to call it, Vipers, we picked Vipers to win it. I did not expect them to score a lot of points, but they did. In the final game, Arlington Renegades, the best, not great team at 3-2. They beat the Brahmas 12-10. Kind of interesting at the end, perhaps. Kyle Sloter, 14 of 26, 148, and an interception. Devon Smith, 19 carries for just 44 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Arcondo, 3 catches for 40 yards on 4 targets. Of course, Sal Cannella, 4 of 32 for 8, and he had 8 targets on the day. Is it Kyle Sloter? Is it the quarterback, or is it you got two? Somebody posted this on the Twitter somewhere. Y'all don't, and I love Jonathan Hayes, but y'all have 2 offensive coordinators, and you guys can't get it together. Is it the quarterbacks or is it the coordinators? That's the part that I'm a little do not know yet. As far as on the Brahma side, Reed Sinnott comes in until he gets his foot hurt. 13 of 19, 97 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Jaquez Patrick, 6 catches for 26 yards. Remember when this team in the beginning of the season, the Brahmas were a running team. It looked like Sinnott was going to be the guy. Then he hurt his foot. Jack Cohn came in. 7 of 15, 42 yards, 2.8 average, and 2 picks. I think you got to get Sinnott to be the guy. Whether or not he's healthy is another thing. I mean, this is the problem. Kalen Balazs, and this is their new offensive coordinator too. 5 catches, 42 yards on 7. That's your running back. Fred Brown, 4 catches, 31 yards on 9 targets. The next guy with 5 catches, Jaquez Patrick, 5 catches, 24 yards, and 6 targets. So that's where Brahma's offense is struggling. The Renegades are struggling. Clearly, the class of the division is the Houston Roughnecks. And if they go up against the Renegades, unless they put it together soon, I'm just kind of sitting back and waiting to see if they put it together. So that's the results for this week. So now let's get into our next segment and let's talk some XFL football, the first half of the season, with our panel from our writers from XFL News Hub. All right, gentlemen, can you hear me? All right, let's see. Let's make sure. Can the fans hear you guys? That's the next piece of the puzzle. Can you guys in the because last time we did this, people couldn't hear you guys. They were like, "Oh, it was too low." So leave your questions right now. I'm just getting some feedback in the chat room. You cannot hear them. No. Let's see. How about now? I want you guys. Hey, Mike, why don't you say something?
Pat Rafino, Evan Willsmore, Anthony Miller, awesome crew.
Yes. All right. Can you guys hear them now? I had to unmute it. We'll find out here in a second. I assume they can now because I can see your audio. All right. So thanks, guys. All right. We're good to go. All right. Live television. You got to love it. All right. So I appreciate you guys coming on. We got 2 OGs. Anthony Miller, Mike Mitchell. Let's start with the 2 OGs. We were there when we got to week 5 and everything came down crashing. We'll start with Anthony Miller. We hit week 5 in the XFL season. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think when you compare it to 2020, I know there's been questions about attendance, there's been questions about the ratings, but I think the quality of the play is a lot better. I really do. I think defenses are playing well. I think in terms of quarterbacks, when you look back in 2020, there was maybe 3 really good quarterbacks and the rest were kind of average. I think this time around, we have some legit quarterbacks. I think, I know Ben DiNucci's been turning the ball over a lot, but he's been good. Brandon Silvers, AJ McCarron. You even look at like Luis Perez, Paxton Lynch. These are guys that have been pretty consistent. Jordan Tiamo's played a lot better. We're seeing an emergence of a lot better quarterbacks, and I think a lot of that has to do with the work Jordan Palmer did with the quarterbacks prior to it and developing them prior to it. So I think that's been a huge impact in it. I think the running games are not as great, but defensively, there's a lot of good individual defensive players compared to what it was in 2020. So I think, there's been some questions about other stuff. The quality of play has been great. And I really think it is better than what it was 3 years ago.
Yeah. So Mike Mitchell, what is your take as a guy that covered the league in 2001 when he was 10 years old, let's say, at the time? So give us, what's your take on the XFL now we passed through week 5?
You know, it's you start looking at every different aspect, and it's like there's so many gray areas, you know, when you look at the business aspect, the ratings, the attendance. There are things you don't worry about with other leagues. So you think about, you know, how long can this league make it? Can they get a foothold? You know, can they be successful over the long term? Can the new ownership group be patient with the league and wait out and weather the storms here? The football, I never have a doubt about it with these leagues. You know, it's not an easy task putting together 8 new teams. There's going to be some sloppiness. We've seen some ugliness from a few teams on how they've handled situations. But overall, I think the football's been very good. I'm really impressed with the players that are in the league. I'm excited for a lot of these guys that have gotten an opportunity to play, the Ja'Cory Pearsons, the John Trey Kirklands, guys I'm huge fans of. And so, and even the veterans like the AJ McCarron, yeah, you know, it's great to watch him go out there and be a pro and handle his job. And, you know, sometimes you get veterans in these leagues that are just like kind of loafing it. They don't care. And then, so it's great when you have guys who are motivated and care and, you know, they're really going out there and working hard and working with their teammates and connecting. So the Hakeem Butlers, they're like, with these leagues, like I'm a football nerd. So it's like all these like football players are guys that I've watched in preseason games and that I've watched in college. And I go, why is this guy not getting a shot? You know, and so it's like with Hakeem Butler, I've always like rooted for him to be successful and have an opportunity. You know, and I know in the NFL, he's kind of gone from wide receiver to tight end, you know, so it's great to see him get featured and get a shot. You know, he's got skills, you know, so it's a lot of those guys. And then the young guys who are, you know, practice squad guys who, you know, are on the verge of making NFL rosters, the real, I guess, player 54s, they just missed out, ended up on the practice squad and then finished the NFL season on practice squads. Some got cut in December and January, what have you. But these guys are like players like John Trey Kirkland. He had 2 touchdowns in the preseason last year. He made the Cardinals practice squad. I'm not surprised he's lighting it up. You know, I would hope guys like Kyle Sloter would play better. He's one of my preseason heroes from the NFL, guy I've loved since college. But, you know, the football aspect, I'm always a fan of it. The deeper we get into the season, the more fun the games are to me. These teams are developing and they've kind of developed their identities. And then the games take on that much more importance. I can't wait till DC and Houston on Monday night. That's going to be fun just to see that matchup. So from the football aspect, excited, happy, glad we've gotten to this point. Can't wait to see the second half of the season. The business stuff, the rating stuff, attendance, all that, you kind of worry about it, you know, here and there to see what kind of mark this league can make over the long term. But from the football stuff, this is heaven for me.
Yeah. So Pat, you cover basically the biggest fan base in the XFL in St. Louis. What is your reaction being at the games, and how do you think the Battlehawks are doing this season? You're mute. No, he's still muted.
Maybe you could do sign language. He's got an awesome beard.
Okay. Yeah,
like,
that's the sign language. All right, let's just flip it to Evan while he figures that out. Houston Roughnecks seem to be the top guys in the league. What's your thoughts after seeing this kind of upset, in my opinion, with Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it wasn't as much of an upset. I knew that was definitely a game they could lose, just given Seattle's kind of been trending upward lately. And, you know, in terms of sort of, I guess, the matchup, like June Jones is someone who, you know, coached AJ Smith and he knows him very well. So, you know, you kind of worry about that. You know, June Jones kind of has more experience in that department, but it ended up being the defense that really won the Sea Dragons that game. And I covered that in my recap article. But right now, I still think the Roughnecks are on a pretty good track through 5 weeks. I mean, we're 4-1. You know, 1 loss is obviously disappointing, ending the undefeated streak, but it's not the end of the world. I'm really more worried about the next 2 weeks because I think that will be more of a test than anything. You've got DC on Monday night in prime time, I guess you'd say. And, you know, that's a game that, you know, personally, I didn't expect DC to be undefeated up to this point. You know, that's not trying to discredit them. I just, you know, didn't see it really before the season. And even, as the season has progressed, I've kind of looked at them and, now they're at a point where they are the team to beat. They are 5-0. They're better than the Roughnecks, I guess, record-wise. You can debate about, I think Houston has a better passing attack. DC obviously has the better run game. In terms of defense, that's kind of a toss-up. But, that's going to be one to watch out for. And then when Houston returns home in week 7 to play the Battlehawks, I think will be another one, because even though the Battlehawks have kind of been up and down, they're 3-2. I think, that'll still be a pretty good matchup just to see, you've got, I'm trying to think, AJ McCarron, Hakeem Butler, just all those guys really together. Seeing that against Houston will be, again, a test because Houston up to this point has only played, Orlando and San Antonio and Arlington, kind of all the guys, in the South Division. We know who they are at this point in the season. But now, we're getting into sort of a deeper part, playing the guys in the North, and that's proven to be a test so far.
Are you worried at all about the Arlington Renegades taking them or beating them in a playoff game to the championship? And then I'll let Anthony answer that. But first, we'll go with you, Evan, first.
No, I'm not. We've discussed it before. I think Arlington will have a record that does not indicate the team that they are. They'll probably end up going, 6-4, 7-3, something like that. But really, with their offense, that should be a sub 500 team. Again, kind of just comes down to who you're playing. And right now they're sort of in the midst of that back and forth battle with the Brahmas over 2 weeks. But no, I don't worry about it. I think what's going to end up happening is Arlington will play in Houston and Houston will win again, just like what happened in, I guess it was week 2. Do I think it could be a different game? Because by that point, it'll have been the 3rd time they played each other. And, Houston plays Arlington at their home in week 10. And then assuming my prediction becomes correct, they'll turn around right after that and play in a playoff game, except it'll be back in Houston. But do I worry? No, I think, at this point, Arlington's offense has not found an answer to compete with Houston's offense. And, both defenses are arguably good, but scoring points is what wins you the football game. And so far, I haven't seen enough of that from the Renegades to say that they could win in the playoffs. So I don't worry about it.
Anthony, are you, and Pat, did you get your sound working?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Okay, we'll get to Pat in a second. But Anthony, are you disappointed by the Arlington? Are you surprised that they were kind of this? Kyle Sloter, I thought would for sure be a top guy in the XFL.
I didn't really love their offense in the first place. There's a lot of questions about the wide receiver position. And unfortunately, that's kind of been a position that has not been able to step up as much. Sal Cannella, we knew was going to be the number 1 receiver, but we needed somebody else to really step up. And really, it's been maybe Tyler Vaughn, but like Jordan Smallwood's been pretty much non-existent. They just haven't had any other pass targets that have really been able to help them out. So I think a lot of it has to go with, the passing game has been good, but again, a reason for that is the running game as well. This team literally has the worst passing offense. They have the worst passing defense in the league, and they've scored less touchdowns than any other team in the XFL. The offense is just simply not there. This is not a playoff caliber offense, and it's a shame because they probably have arguably the best defense in the XFL, maybe outside of maybe Houston and DC. But the Renegades have great linebackers. They're secondary, despite all the injuries they've had. They still have guys like Will Hill and Devontae Bugsby who have been able to step up and play really well in the secondary. Darnell Sankey's been fantastic at linebacker. Donald Payne is 2nd in the league in tackles. They have really good defensive players. It's just the offense is not being able to step up. So, Kyle Sloter and Drew Plitt, no matter who they put at quarterback, there's not really much they're able to do because they just don't have the pass targets. And John Hayes' play calling has been called into question. He's been getting better over the last couple of weeks, getting a little more creative with it. But without a good receiving core, without the creative play calling from John Hayes, this offense has been stagnant and boring up to this point. So if they don't improve upon that, I agree with Evan. If I'm Houston, I'm not concerned about Arlington because they can probably beat them.
And now, do you think it's on the coaching side, or you think it's personnel, or it's a mixture of both?
I think it's a mixture of both because I think John Hayes it just seems like he hasn't been really comfortable with play calling. It seems like he's getting better at it and he's getting a little more comfortable with it, but I just don't think it's his forte per se. And then, I mean, with the personnel, I just don't think they have the receiving core. I mean, on paper they should have the running backs. I mean, Devion Smith and Kenneth Farrell should be killing it, but they're not getting it done. And they have a good offensive line. They just have not been able to create many holes in the running game. So I think it's a mixture of both.
Gotcha. All right, Pat, now that we've got you back, cacaw is the law, apparently, in St. Louis. Give us reaction. What's it like covering this team and being there in St. Louis?
I mean, first off, and this can't be talked about enough, just what it means to the city for these people. Mark, and I put it in an article, I think, when I went to that first event in November 1st, the welcoming, the biggest thing a lot of these people were saying is, now I can take my kid to a football game. So that's our Super Bowl or championship right there, is that the city, the people of Missouri, St. Louis, all that good stuff is now they can take their family and watch a good team. And even if they were 0-5, as long as they were competitive, I think we'd still be seeing 25,000 plus in the stadium. The football, I mean, personally, I saw some things up in the press box in week 5 that were a little disappointing. It seemed that Greg Williams was giving us the seams and we were getting a little bit too cute on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if he was baiting Gradkowski. Regardless, we didn't attack the seams whatsoever. And then there were some routes that we ran, like levels routes, where we were dumping it off to Jake Sutherland in the flat. And I'm like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Jake Sutherland's a mauler, you know what I mean? He's kind of like Eric Tomlinson in the NFL. Defense, I feel like our biggest issue is tackling. There were a bunch of times where Teamu was scrambling in the backfield, missing, shaking off a tackler here or there, and then getting a 4-yard gain versus a 7-yard sack. Overall, I'm not too concerned about what we got going on. DC is a very one-sided team, obviously, and that's because they can be. They haven't been really forced to throw the football, but Seattle's right on our heels. I do feel better about Seattle because I do think we're just a DiNucci turnover a week between being 3-2 and 0-5. And if he throws 3 interceptions against us, I don't see him winning against us, especially in the Dome.
And so you're not too worried about Seattle? Do you think that somehow, a Seattle-St. Louis matchup, the guys kind of, at least at this point, competing for second place, you're not too worried about Seattle overtaking St. Louis?
Not really. And I want to get the panel's theory on this, is I feel like some of these quarterbacks are trying to do too much because they're trying to get to the NFL. I feel like DiNucci is trying to make way too many high-end throws while taking the check down. I feel that way about Silvers sometimes, where there'll be a route underneath and he's trying to make a throw down the field. And like you said, he's missing the throw when he could have had a 6-yard gain. And with those receivers, those 6-yard gains turn into, a 26-yard gain or something beautiful like that. And I think sometimes they're getting in their heads a little bit. And I feel like that's what Slaughter's doing. I feel like Silvers is doing it. Granted, he's been successful. And I feel like that's when we see a lot of DiNucci picks. Well, McCarron, we know his pedigree. We know who he is. He's older. So if he is going to the NFL, if he chooses to go to the NFL, he's not going to the NFL to start. He's going because he feels like it. And I know that's a very weird way to look at it, but I feel like that's the reality, that AJ doesn't have to make the sexy throw because he's coming in to mentor, Caleb Williams or a younger quarterback, or a Zach Wilson, versus Silvers is going to come in as QB4. DiNucci is going to come in as QB4 and have to fight for that practice squad / QB3 spot. So that's kind of where I'm very comfortable with the Battlehawks versus the Sea Dragons, because DiNucci needs to put up 300 yards, throw 3 touchdowns every game, because it's not, and I hate to say this, and I might upset some people, it's not about the XFL championship for him. It's about getting back to the show. And that's kind of where my issue with the league comes sometimes. It's like, we need to get these guys to the champ, or to be player 53, not 54. And it's like, yeah, but for people in St. Louis, I don't want to say they don't care about the NFL, but we want championships. We want wins. We want a team here for the next 30 years of our lives.
Gotcha. Hey, so Mike Mitchell, covering the DC Defenders. I mean, what do you think of what Pat's saying about some of these QBs? I've made the complaint before. I'm like, and I believe that the league's listening, because I did not hear it this past week as much after we kind of complained a little bit that, you know, you keep pushing this whole like NFL thing. It's like, and these guys are just happy, like Pat was saying, being in the XFL. Like, what are your thoughts on maybe some of these quarterbacks going a little too far, trying to get back?
It's a solid point by Pat. The one thing I'll say about Ben DiNucci, though, I spoke to a coach. I shouldn't say that, but on the Seattle staff. Boy, am I going to get in trouble for that one. Where if he's trying to get back in the NFL, those turnovers that he's had, those are bush league plays. The throwing it up, you know, calling out your receiver, you know, just he's doing a lot of backyard stuff. Those are not NFL plays, you know. So if you're trying to make sometimes DiNucci, I feel like, is playing too loose, and some of these turnovers he's had in these games, I don't want to say these guys are system quarterbacks. That's why I had AJ McCarron as my midseason All-XFL team. He's my quarterback, because I don't want to be disrespectful to Ben DiNucci or Brandon Silvers, but both those guys are in system conducive to being productive. As far as DiNucci goes, he has great arm talent. He's made some big time throws. He has a lot of good talent around him, but he's made a lot of stupid throws, a lot of stupid plays where coaches I spoke to, the coach in particular, you know, there's a lot of people in that locker room like not too happy with Ben DiNucci's play. He's their best option. They have a kid they really like in Frost. Montez is maybe not quite a fit for that scheme. I think that's the way, what I'm gathering as far as information goes. He's got great size and mobility. Maybe he'd be better served in another spot, you know, because otherwise I think they would go to him, and you can't pull your starting quarterback when you win 3 straight games in a row. But I think if Ben DiNucci's trying to hot shot to get in the NFL, it's backfired completely, because his hot shotting and trying to make things happen, it hasn't really panned out. You know, there's a play this season, one of the most exciting plays of the year, 4th down conversion where Ben DiNucci hit Josh Gordon, he backpedaling the game-winning touchdown and all that. Josh has bailed him out on a few plays. So I wouldn't be, that doesn't sit well in a locker room if you're trying to undress a player, and I know that they were talking about it on the broadcast there. And Brandon Silvers, Pat made a good point about him too. I also noticed this, thanks to the XFL's All Access. Caleb Ellaby was trying to tell Brandon Silvers during halftime, we've got to take the underneath stuff. We got to take the 10 yards, the 6 yards and all that. We stop trying to go down the field, and that's a very good advice by a guy who's not dressing, who's very talented, by the way. I like Caleb Ellaby. I'd like to see him get some playing time. There's a couple teams in the XFL probably could use him right now. But, Silvers is also, sometimes you get a little loose and free. It's a fun system to play in. You got 4 wide, you got all these cool and unique plays, easy completions, but sometimes you want to go for the home run. So I do think some of these quarterbacks need to rein it down a little bit and as far as the overall point about, whether or not players are trying to play just for NFL spots, I'm sure that's in play with a lot of these guys. Probably why you're going to get people playing hard, even if guys are eliminated from the playoffs. Even if guys have clinched already a playoff spot, coaches might rest a few guys here and there, but a lot of guys are putting out game film every week and looking to get back to the show. So, but it's a little bit of a factor there. I do think that these teams are treating it not completely like a developmental league, because some of the coaches, although it's not really worked out for them, have fired their offensive coordinators. Usually don't see that in these kind of leagues. Usually they're just not like that knee-jerk relinquish duties from the offensive coordinator. We saw that already with Dwayne Taylor, and Robert Ford has kind of taken a backseat to Shane to Matthews there in Orlando. So yeah, it's kind of a unique San Antonio, obviously Hines Ward with Jaime Elizondo. So that element shows me that these teams are trying to win rather than just get our guys reps. But the quarterback play has been pretty good, the top end. And we've had some young guys that have struggled. So the Jack Cones of the world, unfortunate to Reed Sinnett, they waited too late to start him. Kyle Sloter, I think, is pushing. If you think of Pat's point there about, this might be his last chance. I hate to say this, maybe this will ruffle some XFL fans' feathers, but I felt Sloter had better pass targets with the Breakers in New Orleans. But even there, and that's not saying much, because I think Arlington has the worst skill position. And I'm not, I'll get in trouble for this one too. Davion Smith and Kenneth Farrell look good on paper, but they've looked a step slow to me because they're a little bit on the older side. So almost called them Dallas. Arlington could use a more dynamic young runner, like an Abram Smith type, Max Borgi, that kind of deal. Those guys are good, solid vets, but I got to question how much gas is left in that tank. And then to my original point, which I was saying, which might make some USFL fans happy. I thought the Breakers had better skill position players at wide receiver than Arlington does. I think that's pretty clear to me. But even then, Slaughter's decision making, because you got to remember he had 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions in the USFL. Slaughter's decision making leaves a lot to be desired at times. It's not a talent issue. I'm a fan of his. I'm a Slaughterhouse guy. I wanted him in the spring pro football. He's been disappointing, but Arlington, I think, kind of dropped the ball because Orlando has much better receivers than Arlington. They're much better receivers than San Antonio. So I think Rick Mueller probably get in trouble for this one. Rick Mueller, I don't think he did that defense is tremendous. Special teams tremendous. Both sides are elite. I don't think the Arlington, when you stack up their roster, they're 3-2 because of their defense and special teams. Because when you compare them to the rest of the XFL, but we probably could throw the Brahmas into this too. They just don't quite have the personnel, the talent level that you need Slaughter could use although who knows where he ends up, like a Victor Bolden type.
So, hey, first question from Don. His question is about the Battlehawks, so this is to Pat. Can the Battlehawks defeat the Defenders? Oh, and we'll ask you too, Mike, about this one. Can the Battlehawks defeat the Defenders in the King of the North game, assuming they don't shoot themselves in the foot with penalties? Pat?
I mean, if you look at all the missed tackles that they made, Te'amu goes from rushing for 30. Like, I think Abram Smith still puts 150 yards plus because that 70-yard touchdown run he had, like the safety barely put an arm on him, and granted, that's just breaking down and getting into all the football lingo. But regardless, Abram Smith would have had 150 yards that game. But there was at least 3 almost sacks that they had where Te'amu ended up getting 3 or 4 yards. So you're going from a 3rd and 17 to a 3rd and 4. That stuff matters over time. Their offense, I think, is much better as a complete whole than the Defenders. I'd like to see them attack the seams some more. That was my biggest complaint. It felt like Greg Williams was baiting him a little bit. If you saw when George Campbell caught his touchdown pass, it did look like, that was just a great throw by AJ because they all pretty much just played the end zone, and it was like probably Mike, seven guys in the end zone make a great throw type thing. He gave them the underneath routes. He was like, go ahead, go throw it to Hakeem Butler. He's and my DBs will make that play. Like, you can have your 3 yards. That's cute. If you look at that Stephen Mitchell interception, not the touchdown, he beat Mike Joseph by a step or two. AJ made that throw 15 minutes earlier. So, and this is why I hate the interception stat, because Trayvon Diggs has, 1, inflated it in the NFL, and 2, that wasn't a great defensive back play because the guy was beat. So AJ puts a little bit more sauce on the ball. And granted, Mitchell is 1 hurt, 2 replacing Marcel Aitman. So it's kind of, they're still getting to know each other a little bit. He wasn't active week 1. He was the 4th or 5th receiver week 2 and 3. So we're starting to get, that timing down and everything like that. So I do think the Battlehawks are on the precipice of beating them, but you got to do it. Now, the one thing I have is 9 times out of 10, you beat a team 2 times in the regular season. You usually don't beat that team the 3rd time just by the odds of percentages. So I do feel better about that. And Mike, you can obviously go way more deeper on the defender side, but Te'amu in that week 3 game, which is his best passing game, in my opinion, he's a tip ball away here and there from going 8 of 20 versus 11 and 20 for 190 yards. Football's a game of inches. Very, very cliche to say it, but that's the reality of it. A couple things go their way. Battlehawks didn't cash in on one of their big kick returns, and then a decent punt return plus the 10 penalties right before the second half. So you swing the game 6 points here and there, it's a 26-20 game on St. Louis side.
I think the Battlehawks are going to kick themselves when they watch the film, if they haven't watched it already, because they left a lot of plays on the field. And I think, the punch counter punch aspect of these teams meeting each other 2 or 3 times is interesting, because DC had success against St. Louis throwing the ball down the field, because St. Louis overcommitted to stop the run. So even Anthony Beck pointed out, hey, we let some big plays down the field go, and it was the difference in the game. So what they do, they tried to guard against the potential deep ball at home against the defenders. And now DC, and they did a good job, for the most part, at least stopping De'Aaron King. They did a good job for the most part of watching for the quarterback runs, with the exception of Tiamo breaking tackles. But because they were guarding against the deep ball, now Abram Smith had lanes to run through and break through. And so now it's punch, counter punch, counter punch. So the next time these teams meet, the thing that would defavor DC is, them playing in DC and maybe the weather and all that, because no surprise to me that Abram Smith looked better once he was playing on a regular surface. He played in Vegas. He played in DC with the rain on that grass. As soon as he got on turf indoors, you were able to see some of that explosiveness you saw when he was at Baylor. So I think if the teams meet again, St. Louis, if they get the weather that they needs to capitalize on what they're going to see, what they've seen on film against Greg Williams' defense. He tries to bait you into throws, and then you got to have the arm strength and the recognition to make those throws when they're there. If there's any hesitation there, Michael Joseph can recover, that kind of thing, to make a play in the zone. So I would love to see them play. There's no guarantee that they will. I think the one negative to the whole thing, if you're looking at it from a league aspect, is if DC keeps winning and St. Louis struggles to make the playoffs, it would have been awesome, the possibility of St. Louis hosting a playoff game at home.
Agreed.
I don't know. Who knows at this point? There's still time left in the season, 5 weeks. I don't know if we're going to see that. So we'll see. I mean, St. Louis may not, I think they will, but they might not make the playoffs. So I know that's for Battlehawks Nation. That'll piss people off, but it's possible. I mean, that's a tough division to get in. So we'll see how it goes. They could meet again. And if I was DC, I would be worrisome about that. The thing about the Defenders, which is great, is what they're doing and they still beat you. So their offensive line is really good and their scheme is very good. And it's hard to defend that team because they've got talented runners and talented running quarterbacks. So who do you key in on? So, and, they have they've been adding new runs to their scheme too, which is great, So yeah, I'd love to see that matchup again. Will we? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So Evan, you get to cover the top team in the South Division and the Houston Roughnecks. But we also have the Brahmas and the Guardians out there. And I know you've been to basically a game every weekend. Is that correct?
Yep. First 3 weeks of the season I was there. So I've seen Guardians, Brahmas, and Renegades. I've seen all 3 of the South teams. Yeah.
So what's your take on the Brahmas and Guardians? I mean, Quentin Dormady, is he the guy in Orlando now?
It's tough to say. So in week 1, when I was in Houston, Quentin Dormady played a significant chunk of that game after Paxton Lynch. And he looked not great, to be honest. I mean, again, it's week 1. You're playing a really tough defense. Clearly the Guardians still have things to figure out. I get it. But that Vegas game, I think, should give Guardians fans maybe a bit of confidence. Now, look, your chances at the playoffs are 1%, but it should give you confidence that you could maybe at least be a bit more competitive. And I know Vegas was 0-4 at the time, going into that game. And yes, they still won. But I think, Dormady in that game, you could say looked better individually, stat-wise, and in that, again, performance than Paxton Lynch has looked, sporadically throughout the season. Do I think that Paxton Lynch maybe has more upside? Sure. But again, we're kind of at this point in the season where you're not really making the playoffs. So at this point, why not bring in, Dormady to play more snaps and have a rotation just to get guys playing? Because the reality is he really did look good against Vegas. And I was impressed. I said before, I knew Vegas had a good chance of pulling that out, but typically, teams like that who are both fighting for their first win, they're really going to put up a fight. It's a pretty big deal. And again, I get it. Vegas had the home field advantage. They ended up being the better team. it was a bit sloppy on both sides, as it has been for these teams, through the past couple weeks. But to answer that question about the Guardians specifically, or really about, I guess it wasn't a question, just the game I was at. Yes, I do think Dormady could start for the rest of the season if they make that decision. Do I think that it will happen? We'll see. I still think Paxton Lynch is a bit of a safer option because he did play a tiny bit better. I think he had the upper hand in that week 1 game that I saw in person. But again, at this point, you're 0-5, still trying to find the first win. It really comes down to whatever works.
Yeah. So Anthony Miller covers not only the XFL, but he's covered the USFL, which brings up Luis Perez. Are you surprised Luis Perez is the baller? Brett Hundley, we thought, would be the guy there. Your thoughts on Luis Perez basically taking over as the Vegas Vipers quarterback?
I mean, I thought he was good for the Generals last year in the USFL. There was nothing. I mean, he's not one of those guys that's going to put up 400 yard, 3 touchdown games. He's always going to be, the game manager who's going to put up 200, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's good at protecting the football. So I think Rod Woodson has been looking for somebody who's going to protect the football and help the offense be consistent moving the ball down the field. And it's not a knock on Brent Hundley. I thought he had some really good moments, but Perez has just been more consistent. That offense has seemed to flow a lot better with him. So I'm not surprised. I think a lot of people at the beginning of the season were thinking, well, Hundley's getting signed because he's there to be the starter. And that may be true, but Huntley, it's been a few years since he's played on the field. Perez has been playing every single year. I mean, he's a spring football legend at this point. So he's had a lot of playing time. He's had reps pretty much every single year for the last few years. So it makes sense for Perez to, maybe play better than Huntley. And it's just because Huntley needs to get back into football shape. And Perez has been in it for the last few years, and he's been consistent. I mean, he's been getting better and better every year. I mean, AAF, he was okay. He was like 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. There wasn't anything great about him. He was steady, but then as he went to the New York Guardians, and then he played in the spring league. And then when he started playing in the USFL, you saw a slow progression in him getting better and better. It's because he was protecting the football better. Again, he's not a guy that's going to blow you away with arm strength or anything like that, but he's a consistent quarterback who is going to protect the football for you. So that helps you win games.
Now, you also do the Player of the Week articles, and we'll get into Pat, and then, of course, Mike's big article today. Do you have players reaching out to you or agents saying anything to you when you're picking the Players of the Week and saying, hey, man, what about me, or what about my client, or any of that kind of stuff?
Not yet, but I hope if they reach out, it's always going to be compliments. But fans are going to have their opinions on it. On other players they should think about. It's really hard for me to pick. I mean, this week was a lot easier. I mean, Abram Smith was easy pick for Offensive Player of the Week just because he put up 218 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. So, and then Darius Shepard, he got my Special Teams Player of the Week for the second time in 3 weeks just because of what he did on special teams. I haven't had anyone reach out to me quite yet, but I'm sure that's going to be coming soon enough if I make any controversial picks.
So, Pat, you do the quarterbacks rankings. How would you, it's half of the season is through. How would you kind of rate the quarterback play overall, and who do you think are the top 3 guys that'll finish the season at the top?
I mean, it's the most consistent right now. It's going to be Silver's 1 because he is putting up statistically gaudy numbers, but I do agree with Mike that overall AJ because it's kind of this Andrew Luck thing, in my opinion. So I'll go on this tangent before I get back to the original question.
Sure.
When you say the MVP, it's the most valuable player. That shouldn't mean the best player in the league, right? We all think it is, but who is the most valuable player in the NFL during Andrew Luck's time? It was him because of how bad the Colts were, which led to his early retirement, unfortunately. So if you look at the spring league stats of Kevin Anderson, and I love Kevin Anderson. Kevin Anderson was Garrett Gilbert's 3rd string in the AAF. Didn't play much in the CFL. He threw no picks and was like top 10 in the league in a 2 quarterback system in the spring league in 2021. Brandon Silvers was better than him. So I think that relies more on the system. So when we go the most valuable player of the league, I think Mike hits it on the head or most valuable quarterback, All-XFL quarterback. it is AJ, even though Brandon might be the top quarterback of the league, if that makes sense. I know that's a little bit of wonky thinking, but that's my opinion. Now, to go into that third spot, I keep DiNucci there, and the reason why I don't keep Teamu in that third spot, despite the 5-0, is because it's kind of that Taysom Hill mold right now. He's not the best quarterback in the league. He's one of the top players and whatnot, but he's not throwing the ball. And until he's like, how am I going to see you with adversity, if that makes sense? Like when I need Teamu to throw the ball 30 times, are you going to throw for over 60%, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick? Because, all the injuries on the offensive line, Abram Smith is not getting it going. Raquel Armstead is hurt, and De'Aaron King is just, they figured it out. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my metric. I do think Mike gets it right on the All-XFL quarterback is AJ, but he's number 2 in my rankings. I was creeping Paxton up there for a little bit. He didn't play bad in his little stint this weekend, but he didn't play amazing, which is why he was swapped out. I'm a Paxton Lynch guy, so I'll always shill for the dude, because especially last year in the USFL, a lot of drops. 2 of his interceptions were off the receiver's hands. We've seen a couple of that here with a lot of drops with his receivers. And then Luis Perez just had, he's gotten those 2 consistent back-to-back start or multiple majority playing time, not starts, because last week he was backing up. But I think he'll creep into that 4 or 5 role, which I'll put him possibly over Teamu because he's throwing the ball more and whatnot. So it kind of gets weird in my opinion, but I feel very comfortable. And as far as with feedback, I've had a lot of people agree with me. I've had a couple players reach out, not guys on the list yet, but a couple players have been like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Your reasoning sound. Obviously in the initial list, I got a little bit more feedback from a player who thought he was better than Mr. Slaughter, but that's his opinion, and I respect it because he's on the field and I'm not. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and I hate to say this, Cone's regressed so much. We talked about Slaughter, so jittery back there, and if he can't find Sal as the second option, he freaks out. It looks like, and then it's kind of a hodgepodge of, okay, so who played this week a little bit?
Yeah. So, Mike, you came out with your All-XFL team, and we saw on social media you got a bunch of reactions. So tell us about your article if people haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's difficult to do. I gotta admit, I might have pushed it a little bit with honorable mention. There's so many players that I want to shine a light on that I think it was 13 offensive linemen. Of course, I have the first team 5 guys, but there's 8 guys. And when I look back at it, I go, you know what? I might have missed a couple of guys, but there's only so many guys I can list on honorable mention. There's some guys who played well, but they haven't played that long. They've been injured, the Jared Jones-Smith, those kind of guys. So it's fascinating to go through it. I remember doing it 3 years ago, the midseason All-XFL team, and then all hell broke loose and the world ended. So that was kind of crazy doing that. And I went back as I was doing research, and I'm crazy with these leagues. I watch every team's game at least twice. So so to kind of get a good feel for it, because when you watch something live, you don't really see everything. And then, so when you watch it a second time, you get a better feel for what you're looking at. So I just, I went back and I looked at the old article back in 2020, and I looked at some of those players. And the XFL at the time released their own midseason All-XFL team. And there's a lot of good players on that list that obviously in the NFL right now, the Donald Parhams, that kind of thing. So it's not easy going through it, and you definitely get a lot of feedback. I've gotten, behind the scenes, you get agents that hit you up, executives, personnel guys. They're happy to get recognition. A lot of these players don't get the, recognition. So, agents are happy that their players get recognition. Coaches are happy. Personnel guys, I keep tipping my hat to Von Hutchins. So I want people to know how great of a job he's done over there. And, I was impressed. Look, I'm going to be a fair marker with these things, because before the season started, I was very critical like Orlando's offensive line, and we can see how that's kind of working out for them. But with DC, I was very positive about a lot of the moves they've made there. They could use a little more receiver talent. It's scary to think that how good they would be if they had I don't know why this guy's name's in my head, but Victor Bolden type, that kind of thing, on their offense. I do like Lucky Jackson, Chris Blair. They've stepped up the last few weeks and they're making plays there. So, but yeah, it's quite a process going in, reviewing the games, watching them multiple times, and then trying to figure out who, I've gotten a little bit of heat behind the scenes for not putting Josh Gordon on the team. So he got honorable mention simply because I think Ja'Cory Peterson, Jeff Badette, Hakeem Butler, these guys are hard to leave off. John Trey Kirkland, who I think is we'll see if he's out for the year. Hopefully he's not. He suffered a pretty serious shoulder injury in that Thursday night game. So I'm hoping he's not announced as being put on the reserve list very shortly. But he's an explosive player, 5 touchdowns, 17 yards a catch, and he's a big difference maker in that offense too, because he's their best big play guy down the field. So anyhow, but it's not an easy task putting together the team. You don't want to overlook somebody. I'm sure that I did. Any positive feedback I get from it, I appreciate it. A lot of hard work goes into it. And so that's kind of where it stands. So I'm glad that people are checking it out.
Cool. All right, let's get to the final question. We'll go hit each one of you guys with the same question. First, who's winning it all? And second, who is a player that maybe is not out there right now, but that could be by the end of the season? Evan, we'll start with you. Who's winning it all? And who's a guy that maybe fans haven't heard of yet that might be making a name for themselves in the next 5 games?
Yeah, so, in terms of who's going to win it, my heart still wants to say Houston. I know, the week 5 performance was pretty disappointing for, I guess, the team's standard, given, how well the past 4 weeks have gone. But DC's really getting up there. I think next week's week 5 game will say a lot about, because that could be a potential championship preview. I know we've talked about that a couple of times. We'll see. I want to say Houston, but I lean towards DC. And then, hell, I don't know, you could throw in St. Louis as a sort of dark horse, maybe. I'm not quite sure yet. I got to probably sit on that one for a while and think about it a bit more, even though we've had 5 weeks of gameplay. We're at the halfway point of the season. And then someone who I think that could have an expanded role this season, this is very contingent on whether or not John Trey Kirkland is injured and, well, how long he's out for, whether it's 3 weeks or whether it's for the rest of the season, which would be, possibly more than 5 games considering we make the playoffs. And that's this guy, Justin Smith, from Norfolk State. And we've talked about him. I think I talked about it with Mike maybe and a couple other people. He's a guy, he's been more and more involved over the past couple weeks. He caught his first touchdown in the Seattle game, at the very end there. Not that it really counted towards much at that point, but, he's let a few big plays, I think, go, or even smaller plays maybe, but he's really getting there. And I think in terms of a direct John Trey Kirkland replacement, he might not finish the season with, Deontay Burnett type numbers, because that, I know Burnett will step up too. But if there's one guy who I think can help fill a possible void left behind by John Trey Kirkland, assuming he does miss time, it's that guy, Justin Smith from Norfolk State. Again, hasn't done a whole lot so far, but I think, the potential is there. And, he's been talked well by the coaches. I've heard good things about him. And I think he has a very high ceiling. So I'm hoping that, he will continue to be more involved as the weeks progress, and he'll, continue to get more targets, catches, things like that.
Yeah, when Kirkland went down, that offense completely changed. So it'll be really interesting to hear what happens with his injury situation. All right, Anthony Miller, who's winning it all and player to keep an eye on?
I guess you got to go DC. They've just been the most consistent team. What wins championships? Defense and good running games, and they have probably 2 of the best at each of them. So Abram Smith has been spectacular for that DC team, especially the last couple of weeks. He's really emerged, kind of got off to a slow start, but he's really picked it up of late. That's a DC team that's not only really good at running the football, but they're really good at protecting the football. They don't have a lot of turnovers. They can protect the football really well, and that makes a difference. Michael Joseph is one of the best defensive players in the XFL. The amount of turnovers he's been getting with the interceptions, he's been great. I mean, overall, this is a DC team that's complete from start to finish, and I think there's a good chance DC probably ends up winning it all. In terms of a player to watch out for, I love Tyler Vaughns. I know we just talked about how the Renegades probably have the worst skill positions in the league, but Tyler Vaughns has been a guy that's been consistent. He's been the consistent number 2 receiver behind Sal Cannella. He's a guy that is really solid in route running, can make all the catches. He rarely drops a pass. He's going to be one that eventually the Renegades are going to figure out how to have a consistent passing game. And once they do, it's not going to be Jordan Smallwood that's going to be the guy. I'm telling you, it's going to be Tyler Vaughn. So I would say watch out for him the rest of the season to kind of be the guy to step up behind Sal Cannella.
Yeah, Smallwood, I mean, has he caught more than 5 balls the whole season? I mean, he's kind of surprised that he didn't do anything. But all right, Pat, who do you think is going to win it all? Player to keep an eye on. And it's fine if you don't believe that St. Louis will do it for your protection going to the games. You can just say St. Louis, but give us your thoughts.
Well, if I didn't say St. Louis in this hypothetical bizarro land that you live in, but I would have to agree with Evan in the Roughnecks, and the reason being is if they get out, we haven't seen DC play from behind really. Obviously the Battlehawks were winning at 1.3-0, but how are they going to respond when we have to see Teamu throw the ball 30 times? And that's until if Teamu goes out, and that's a similar game this weekend, and he throws the ball 20 of 30 and a couple touchdowns, I'll eat my words and I'll do it proudly. But until then, I need to see how DC plays with some adversity. Houston got, very rarely do we see a 10-0 team in these leagues. I don't think we have. Mike would know more than me because he's covered them way more. But until it's good to get that one loss out of the way, kind of humble yourself a little bit and, continue to progress on from there. So obviously it will be the Battlehawks, for my protection. But if not, the Houston Roughnecks are definitely, right now my second team.
And then what about a player?
AJ Smith fanboy. I was thinking about that as it's coming up, and maybe a little bit of a recency bias, but Stephen Mitchell, I think we get the timing down. He's a speedster. Yeah. And with AJ and whatnot, I don't know how hurt Aitman is. We know, and the thing is too, is we know who Keem is, we know who Shepard is, we know who Brian Hill is, and we know who Prohl is. But Steve Mitchell guy kind of out of nowhere, a little bit of NFL experience, and really right now putting on the burner. And he's done some good underneath routes as well. His first touchdown, I think, was like a 7-yard touchdown. They put him on some end around stuff, that goofy Andy Reid shovel pass as well. So he's pretty versatile. I mean, we don't need him in the kick return game right now because of Shep, but it would be probably Stephen Mitchell. I'm curious to see his expanded role going forward. Wouldn't be surprised to see a 3-catch, 127 game from him in the next couple months or in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and the thing about DC, they really should have lost that first game. I mean, DiNucci was there basically ready to score and fumbled it, and then that was it. So
if only they had a fullback who was also a quarterback to do their QB sneaks.
There you go.
Who has the body of a tight end that wears number 12. If only.
All right, Mike Mitchell, who's winning it all and player to keep an eye on?
I think because they have the easiest path, I have to say Houston. Because it's going to be tough. Like any one of those 3 top teams in the North can win the whole thing, but St. Louis can knock off DC, Seattle can knock off DC, and vice versa. So if I was betting on it, I would predict that Houston, because they have the easiest path to get to the championship game. As far as a breakout player goes, I like the room that Pat's in, not just because of the Mitchell guy, because he's my cousin. Yeah. But I would really like to see Darius Shepard play more on offense. They got such a deep room there with the Battlehawks, because they got a lot of nice players, interesting guys. George Campbell, 5-star recruit, big, tall guy under sub 4.4 speed. They got a lot of talented guys. Stephen Mitchell's a big-time threat. But I'm a huge fan of Darius Shepard. I understand maybe they don't want to wear him out thin. like put him in too many roles. But I would love to see him on offense because I really think that he could be a star receiver for them, a number one go-to guy. I know that's saying a lot because Hakeem Butler's eating up all the targets there, but there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be on an NFL roster, Darius Shepard. So his receiving ability, which I was impressed with in the summer, and of course in the USFL, and then his return ability, you should make an NFL roster with that skill set as far as I'm concerned. So I'd like to see him be featured more, because I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Campbell or Mitchell. Both those guys can contribute, but I just feel like Shepard's more polished and than those guys, and I think he could be a factor on offense. St. Louis is a very talented offense. Brian Hill's a heck of a player too. He's one of the top backs in the league. So championship, I will say Houston, even though I think DC is the best put together overall team, and everyone knows what they're doing, and it doesn't matter. So they just need to prove, like Pat said, that they can, they don't want to get in a shootout, but that they can stand up if they have to in the passing game. And so it's good to see that Lucky Jackson, Chris Blair step up last couple of weeks. We'll see if the adversity comes and they're called to do it, and they can.
Yep, this will be the week to find out, Monday night. All right, Evan, where can people find you on the social and et cetera?
Yep, I'm on Twitter at Evan_Willsmore. I'll be posting, Roughnecks news, game highlights, everything like that from when I'm at the games. We come back home week 7 against St. Louis, which is a game I'm really looking forward to. So all that'll be there. Working on a midseason review article right now for the team. So a lot of good stuff coming.
Cool. All right, Anthony, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can follow me at by Anthony Miller on Twitter, and I'll be got some great Renegades articles coming out. Just got one today out, so you can check it out, and I'll have some more coming in the week. And then obviously the Renegades have 2 home games coming up here in the next week and a half, so I'll be at those games covering it.
Cool. Pat, and you got your little YouTube channel too going on, right? Where can they find you?
Well, they can find me in St. Louis rolling on dubs. Yes. I've been waiting for that one. But no, you can find me on NFL QB Talk. You can on Twitter, Pat from Cali on Instagram, and Analyze and Educate on YouTube. I got a couple guests lined up coming. So that's where you got me. Or just randomly somewhere in Clayton, Missouri at a nice Italian restaurant.
There you go. All right, Mike, where can they find you?
Western Mass near Amherst. At by Mike Mitchell. I'm in all the hubs. USFL News Hub, CFL News Hub, XFL News Hub. Also write for the JetPress.com. I got a couple Jets articles coming out there. So 4 different leagues writing about. So there's something wrong with me in the head, but it's just the way it goes.
All right. Hey, once again, guys, I appreciate you taking the time. We made it through week 5. I'm super excited to get through week 6, and then I'll take a little breath. I said week 6, I'll be chill. Week 8, and then week 10. So this is what we did the first time. Now there's nothing crazy going on. Hopefully no space aliens come in this week, so we should be all right for week 6. So again, I appreciate you guys coming on the program.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for having us.
Get ready for the biggest XFL season yet with RunTheSims.com.
15 more weeks.
Ultimate toolkit for XFL DFS and prop
All right, thanks,
betting.
guys.
With DraftKings offering
Thanks, Mark.
XFL contests with huge prize pools, you want to have the best tools and player projections at your fingertips. And Run the Sims delivers with their lineup optimizer, showdown simulator, and expert pick'em tools for prize picks and underdog. So here's the deal. Use code NEWSHUB for 10% off a monthly or weekly spring football subscription and get access to accurate projections to help you make informed decisions and make that money. That's runthesims.com. Use the promo code NEWSHUB for 10% off. So if you followed spring football and in the past, you know the information edge can be massive. So if you want to win big, subscribe to runthesims.com and use the promo code NEWSHUB today to save 10% off.
All right, we got Mike Mitchell's midseason All-XFL team. That's right. Week 5 is complete. The regular season, 20 XFL games have been completed. That means we have 20 more to go before we get the 3-game playoff to decide the XFL's champion. That's on Saturday night, May 13th on ABC. With so many players to pick from, he has got a big list, so let's just get right into it. So the midseason All-XFL team starts. Quarterback, A.J. McCarron. 2 comeback winning victories, down multiple scores, second in completion percentage among starting quarterbacks, 65.5%, first in passing touchdowns, 11, and third in yardage, 1,086. Honorable mention, Ben DiNucci and Brandon Silvers, DiNucci of the Sea Dragons, Silvers of the Roughnecks. It's a tough one, but definitely both guys, you could see that. But really, the star, the PJ Walker of the XFL this go around is really AJ McCarron. So have no problem with him as the top QB in the league. Abram Smith, running back, DC Defenders. Wow, you just saw the game just last week. 466 yards from scrimmage, league leader in rushing. Well, when you have 200 yards in a game, that helps. 5.1 per carry and 4 touchdowns. When you have a lot of them in one game, that helps. Other honorable mentions, Morgan Ellison, the Seattle Sea Dragons, Brian Hill, St. Louis Battlehawks, Max Borghi of the Houston Roughnecks. Any of these guys, Morgan Ellison's been hurt a little bit this past week. Brian Hill is definitely a guy, and Max Borghi's been hurt a little bit. So that is definitely your top running backs in the XFL. Wide receiver, there's a lot of them. He's got John Trey Kirkland, Houston Roughnecks, second in receiving touchdowns with 4, 1 passing TD. We remember saw that, and 16.9 yards per catch. Against first in catches, 46. Plays over 20 yards, 6, and receiving yards, 400 and 1 touchdown. Hakeem Butler, A.J. McCarron's favorite target, second in receptions with 30, third in yards, 336, and tied for second in touchdowns with 4. Jeff Badette, league's leader in touchdowns with 5, and second overall in receiving touchdowns. Definitely, there's nothing wrong with this list whatsoever. Some honorable mentions. Josh Gordon, he's been kind of disappearing the last 2 games. Austin Prohl was out in the front in the beginning, kind of took a little sidestep. And then Deontay Burnett has kind of been there for the Houston Roughnecks, and Blake Jackson from the Seattle Sea Dragons right there. At tight end, he's got Cody Latimer, Orlando Guardians, third in receptions, 307 yards, third in yards, 336, and tied for third in receiving touchdowns with 3. He had a big game this past week. Honorable mention, of course, Sal Cannella, Arlington Renegades, 22 receptions, 181 yards. Though they've been struggling, the Arlington Renegades on offense, so that means kind of why he might be. We thought maybe we'd get a little bit more from him, but definitely Latimer has been the guy. Offensive line, Sage Doxtator, Houston Roughnecks, Colin Kelly, Seattle Sea Dragons, Mike Horton, Arlington Renegades, Liam Fornaldo, DC Defenders, and Kahil McKenzie, Vegas Vipers. He's got other guys, Mike Maietti, DC Defenders, Liam Ryan from the Defenders, Cole Lavo, Brahmas, Kyle Murphy, Defenders, Garrett McGinn, Renegades, Jack Snyder, Roughnecks, Duran Parker, Roughnecks, and Liam Jimmons, Seattle Sea Dragons. All of these guys will definitely get looks. Offensive linemen are hard to come by. And you notice Mike Mitchell has a bunch of DC Defenders guys on there. And there's the reason why they can be on that list was because they have the best running game in the league. And that helps. Defensive linemen, let's go on the defensive side of things. At the edge rusher, he's got Trent Harris, Houston Roughnecks, first in sacks with 6 in 4 games, 8 tackles for a loss. Edge, he's got Tim Ward, of course, from the Houston Roughnecks as well. No surprise that they have Roughneck players on there. Second in sacks with 7 tackles for a loss, and 10 QB hits. Maximilian Roberts from the Vegas Vipers, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 7 QB hits. Jarrell Owens, 3 sacks, the highest graded run defender in the league, 3 tackles for a loss, 3 QB hits. Davin Bellamy, DC Defenders, he's been all over the place. 3rd in sacks, 3.5, 4 tackles for a loss, 9 QB hits, and 3 forced fumbles. That's a lot. TJ Barnes, Arlington Renegades, top-graded XFL run defender in the league by Pro Football Focus at a 90.4. Other guys, Vic Beasley definitely has played well for the Vegas Vipers. Tazar Skipper, Seattle Sea Dragons. John Daka, Houston Roughnecks. Pitta, Tom Pino, Vegas Vipers. Joe Wallace in the DC Defenders, and LaRon Stokes from the Vegas Vipers. On there for the linebackers, Donald Payne, Arlington Renegades, 38 tackles, a half a sack, and 1 fumble recovery. Emmanuel Ellerby, Houston Roughnecks, 34 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1.5 sacks. And Jordan Williams from the Brahmas, league leader in tackles with 40, 4 for a loss. Other honorable mentions, Willie Harvey, Battlehawks, Jordan Evans, Sea Dragons, Francis Bernard, the Defenders. Reggie Northrup, yeah, my guy, DC Defenders. CJ Avery, the Vipers. Terrence Plummer, Orlando Guardians. Darnell Sankey, Arlington Renegades. That's right, the Darnell Sankey from the CFL. And Mike Rose from the St. Louis Battlehawks. At defensive back, Luke Barku, San Antonio Brahmas, cornerback. League's highest rated cornerback by Pro Football Focus at 92.0. Leads the league in pass breaks-ups with 10. 19 tackles, 2 for a loss, a sack, and an interception. Michael Joseph has been a guy for the DC Defenders. 4 picks, 2 returned for a touchdown, both in DC. 6 passes defensed and 21 tackles. He's looked great. Argene Harris, cornerback for the Houston Roughnecks. First in interceptions with 5 and 3 pass defense. Anthony Texada, San Antonio Brahmas, top-graded nickel corner. 15 tackles, 4 for a loss, 2 sacks, 1 interception, and a forced fumble. Deontay Anderson for the Vegas Vipers, 3 pass defense, 3 QB hits, 30 combined tackles, 18 solo, 2 for a loss, 1 forced fumble. Sean Davis, Houston Roughnecks, 3 INTs, 6 pass defense, and 1 fumble recovery. Other guys, honorable mention, safety Nate Meters, St. Louis Battlehawks. Cornerback Josh Hawkins, Arlington Renegades, he's out for the year. Cornerback DeJuan Neal, DC Defenders. Athulia Kelly for the DC Defenders. Adam Sparks for the Vegas Vipers. Ben DeLuca for the Battlehawks. Cam Kelly for the Brahmas. Will Hill, Arlington Renegades. And Tenny Duisi from the San Antonio Brahmas. Okay, come on. Get all these names wrong. Excellent players there. Special teams, John Parker Romo, San Antonio Brahmas, 7 of 8 for field goals, including that 57 Lumen Field record in Seattle and 5 field goals over 40 yards. Honorable mention, Matt McCrane, DC Defenders, of course, punting. Daniel Whelan, DC Defenders, 43.4 yards punting average, tied for the league lead with 8 punts inside the 20. Other guys, Race Porter, Houston Roughnecks, Marquette King, Arlington Renegades. Plus, he had that punt. You saw that punt last game where he actually recovered the punt. And Brad Wings, San Antonio Brahmas. Kick returner Darius Shepard, St. Louis Battlehawks, 29.9 kick return average. And a head coach, he's got the guy who's 5-0, the college football guy, HBCU guy, in Reggie Barlow. So what do you think, XFL Nation? Do you agree with Mike Mitchell's midseason All-XFL team? Let us know in the comments. Our man Anthony Miller has the offensive players of the special teams and defensive players of the week. We'll get right into it. Of course, easy pick, offensive player of the week, Abram Smith. Running back, DC Defenders, 23 carries, 218 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Need we say more? He was all over the place. Massive game. Honorable mention, Quentin Dormady. That's right, the controversial, but then it wasn't, and it was made up, or whatever the deal is going on there. 22 of 25, 256 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Cordy Latimer, tight end for Orlando Guardians, 8 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. Wish he stayed in the game at the end with the 4th and 15, but he was gassed. Hopefully, could this be a sign that the Orlando Guardians offense is ready to get going? Luis Perez, Vegas Vipers, 20 of 28, 269 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 carries for 9 rushing yards. Jeff Badette, Vegas Vipers, 5 catches, 80 yards, and 2 TDs. And Brian Hill, the running back from the Battlehawks, 14 carries, 79 yards, rushing yards, 3 catches for 29 receiving yards. Defensive player, Pitta Taumapeo, linebacker, Vegas Vipers, 5 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss, and 1 false fumble, all over the place. Huge game from him. Honorable mention, Ajeen Harris, DB from the Roughnecks, 4 tackles, 2 interceptions. Willie Taylor, linebacker for the Renegades, 3 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 forced fumble. Andre Mintz, linebacker, DC Defenders, 3 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 forced fumble. Terrence Smith, linebacker, Orlando Guardians, 7 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 forced fumble. Tim Ward, defensive line, Houston Roughnecks, 5 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss. Special teams player of the week, Darius Shepard, the kick returner, 3 kickoff returns, 155 yards with an 80-yard long return for him. Honorable mentions, Taylor Russolino, kicker, Arlington Renegades. He was 2 for 2 with a 43-yard long field goal. And Donald Hagman, Battlehawks, also had 2 field goals with 36 being the longest. Mac Brown, punter, Orlando Guardians, 3 punts for 47.7. And Brad Wigg, Brahmas, 5 punts for 42.6. And hey, I still got to bring up the Marquette King punt that he downed himself, which was pretty cool, but he didn't get enough stats in there. So there you have it, the Week 5 offensive, defensive, and special teams players of the week. XFL Power Rankings by our own Mike Mitchell, the league's best to worst. We'll get right into it. Number 1, your Week 6 Power Rankings, America's team, the undefeated, undisputed champions of the North. Well, I mean, hey, we're only halfway through the season. DC Defenders, they are number 1. Clearly, they just ran all over the St. Louis Battlehawks on front of a raucous crowd of 35,000 at the Dome in St. Louis. Abram Smith, the former Baylor standout, ran all over the place, and that's why they made him the number 1 overall pick, and they took it to St. Louis, even though St. Louis kind of still in it. I mean, it wasn't like a super blowout, but they're at number 1. Number 2, the Battlehawks at 3-2. Placing the St. Louis Battlehawks second could stir some controversy and potentially age poorly. However, when you consider that St. Louis's only 2 losses have come to the league's top team, DC, and the overwhelming strength of the North over the South, it's not crazy as one would think. The Battlehawks, as they have done all season, battled back down multiple scores, nearly rallied to push DC into overtime, but they couldn't overcome all the damage they encountered during Saturday night's game. St. Louis failed to exact sweet revenge on DC, a team that looks 2 steps ahead of them and everyone else right now. So that's why he moved them up. Now, all of a sudden, the Battlehawks are in a precarious position at the halfway point. Anthony Beck's bunch went from potentially taking over the North to now fighting for their playoff lives. St. Louis is tied with Seattle for the second and final playoff spot in the division. The saving grace is that they own a victory over the Dragons early in the season. Battlehawks have 2 straight road games on the horizon. Week 6, they head to Vegas to face the Vipers before battling Houston in Week 7, and then St. Louis comes home and plays the Vipers again. The 2 upcoming divisional games are pivotal for the Battlehawks' playoff chances because of potential tiebreakers at the end of the season. Seattle Sea Dragons are now at 3. At 3-2, the league's most enigmatic team lands in the 3rd spot. Enigmatic team. The Dragons could either be 5-0 or 0-5 at this point, but as frustrating as their near losses at home to Houston last Thursday night, the fact of the matter is that they are beating the previously unbeaten Roughnecks. Seattle has showed that they are a legit threat to win it all if they can just figure out a way to stop beating themselves. Talking about Ben DiNucci's turning over the ball, for example. But they have some MVPs. Houston Roughnecks are at number 4. On the surface, it seems foolhardy to drop a team with only 1 loss down 4 spots. After all, a week from now, Houston could be back on the top of the rankings if they beat DC. But if they lose to DC, then, this doesn't seem so crazy after all. However, the quality of opponent now comes into question for the Roughnecks after their lackluster performance against Seattle in Week 5. Houston has 2 victories over the winless Guardians and 1 score wins over 2 struggling South teams in Arlington and San Antonio. So basically, it's a numbers where you haven't really beaten anybody yet, and the best team that you took on was Seattle, and they beat you. Number 5, Arlington Renegades at 3-2, kind of the disappointing teams. It's the reason why they kept them in every game this season. Their defense and special teams has, and that's why they're 3-2 versus 0-5. It's because of their offense among being the worst in the league, if not the worst. Fortunately for them, on Sunday night in San Antonio, they faced a team with similar DNA, netting a 12-10 victory. It wasn't super exciting, but they did get the win. Renegades will see the Brahmas next week again. They're doing back-to-back Sunday afternoon on ABC. So maybe things could change a little bit, but they will be at home and not in San Antonio. We'll see how this goes. So unless the XFL changes their playoff format, the Renegades are going to be a playoff team because Orlando and San Antonio are in their division. Number 6, San Antonio Brahmas at 1-4. Tempting to slide San Antonio to 7 this week, but once again, their defense and special teams plays fantastic. The Brahmas had a chance to win because of those two units. However, despite head coaching Hines Ward making a change at offensive coordinator, it didn't help much. What made matters worse is that the Brahmas lost new starting QB Reed Sinnott to what looks like potentially a season-ending injury. We haven't heard anything left. San Antonio is on life support. A loss in Week 6 to Arlington again will for all intents and purposes, seal their fate in 2023. It's gotten late really early for the Brahmas. Number 7, Vegas Vipers. They're off the schneid, 1-4. Woodson's team finally gets their W. Players get their first win bonus, $1,000 per player. But then when you take taxes out of it, it's like $500. Maybe that's different. In Texas, you take the dub, however you can get it. But we don't know is how we classify the Vipers' victory in Week 5 as well. Earned. I mean, they both gave up a ton of points. Lots of scoring, 67 combined points. The winless bowl lived up to its reputation of both Vegas and Orlando. Both teams went through a comedy of errors on late Saturday night. It's fitting that the game ended at the 1-yard line with 2 false starts as the finish, but it was sloppy. But they did come away with the win, and of course, they are who we thought they are. Orlando Guardians are at 8. Mike Mitchell's preseason projection of Orlando going winless for the season stays intact. To their credit, the Guardians put up a fight Saturday night with their 35-32 loss to the previous winless Vegas Vipers. Could they have a guy in Quentin Dormandy to help their team going? We'll have to find out. But they have a decent – the Guardians have one of the league's best receiving cores, much better than San Antonio or Arlington, for example. But will they continue to have poor coaching and discipline? It wouldn't be an Orlando game without them making questionable decisions and committing penalties. So we'll have to kind of find out there. So we got it. Number 8, Orlando Guardians at 0-5. Number 7, Vegas Vipers at 1-4. 6, San Antonio Brahmas at 1-4. Arlington Renegades at 3-2. At number 5, Houston Roughnecks at 4-1. This could change if the Roughnecks lose this week to DC. This whole thing, but if they win, that changes a lot of things. Number 3, Seattle Sea Dragons at 3-2. Number 2, the St. Louis Battlehawks at 3-2. And, of course, number 1, America's team, your team and my team, the DC Defenders. So let us know what you think about this week's power ranking, Mike Mitchell power ranking, in the comments. The XFL has partnered with America National Combine. So announced today, the XFL announced that ANC, as the official regional combines partner, ANC Combines will expand the XFL's year-round scouting efforts, allowing the league to identify more high-quality, talented players to continuously build its elite football forum. So I guess they're not going out of business if they're doing scouting going into, we'll get into that in a second. Expansive yet diligent scouting is a priority for us. We remain true to our motto as a league of opportunity. We're always watching for talent looking to take the next step of their career with the XFL, said Doug Whaley, XFL Senior Vice President, Player Personnel. Following our success with working with ANC last year on the XFL Summer Showcases, we knew that they would be a great partner to help grow our scouting reach across the country and give us additional opportunities to identify deserving players. Close quote. Stephen Austin, ANC founder, says, we are honored to be named the official regional combine service to the XFL. The XFL is an exciting new league and gives players a great opportunity to break into the pros. XFL scouting personnel, here's for you players that are not currently in the XFL, will be attending all 2023 ANC combines. So it's Houston, April 16th, Los Angeles, April 22nd. Washington, D.C., May 6th. I'm going to have to try to see if I can see that. Go to that one. Chicago, May 14th. Atlanta, May 21st. And St. Louis, May 27th. Players can register at ANC Combines. That's www.anccombines.com. Check out XFL News Hub for the link there. So the XFL is out there making a name, trying to find players, going back. Basically, what this shows you is that they're already looking at season 2, clearly, because they're already making these partnerships, looking for players to play in the league for next season. All right, we'll take a commercial break and we'll be back with your social media stuff and wrap things up, so stay tuned, my friends.
What's up, XFL Army? If you're a fan of the XFL News Hub and you have a telephone, which I know all of you do because you're sitting there playing on your phones all the time, then why not download the XFL News Hub app? That's right, it's on iTunes. It's on Android. We have an Android version and an iPhone version of the XFL News Hub app. So what do you get? You get the latest news from XFL News Hub, the premier source of XFL news in the universe. Plus, you get push notifications when we have breaking news. You will be the first to know. You can leave a comment on some of the news right from your phone. Plus, you get this podcast on your phone as well. Remember, you can leave us reviews on the Google Play Store or iTunes. It links to other social media, our other social media accounts, and so much more. Be in the know. I know you're on your phones. People are on their phones all the time. They never get off their phones. So why not just download the XFL News Hub app on your Android or iPhone today? All you need to do is go to the Google Play Store or iTunes and just type in XFL News Hub. That's XFL News Hub. Download our app on your phone today.
All right, my friends, we are back, wrapping up the show. Shout out to everybody in the chat room, Chris Mason, Damon. Who else we got in there? Russ checking in. Greg Crawford says, without a doubt, the best weapon in the XFL is De'Ara King. The guy's unstoppable. Craig says, do you think the XFL can keep any of these superstars? He's on Facebook. Yeah, I think so. I think they have a opportunity to keep some of these guys. B says, Vegas Hundley, highest paid player, QB at $200,000. I don't know if that's true. B says Pax got screwed in Orlando. He was playing good too, but I think Dormandy played well. Let's see. Anybody else here? Act My Age. Oh, Greg says San Diego Vipers. Okay, how about the Orlando Invaders? Says, Act My Age says, Mark, suggest you consider appointing moderators for this chat. Witless, trolling, blah, blah, blah. Hey, if you guys want to be moderators for this chat, that's by all means. I don't have a problem with that. Trying to do too many things at once, I can't. Sure. I would love to set somebody as a moderator of the team, of the chat. Just show up in the beginning of the show, I guess, or just say you're going to do it and we can set that up. All right, so we are on a long show, my friends, so let's quickly wrap this up. I just wanted to check out our listener league. If you wanted to check out our fantasy football listener league before we get to some messages real quick. Here we got going on. The Blob Stars is leading the way this past week, had 55 points. Mueller's team, Saskatchewan Wheat Demons, I had 42 points this past week. I have to see what's going on with that. But USFL is upon us, and drafting should be ready to go this week, by the end of this week. But they just started their training camps, and so we have that going on there. Finally, let's take a look at some emails and phone calls. Let's take our first phone caller.
Hey, Mark, this is Lek from Indianapolis again. Thank you so much for playing my message on your last episode. I'm very glad that I made your day and that you like my idea of the XFL getting a team here in Indianapolis. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that, about why I think it would work so well. basically here in Indianapolis, we have just under 900,000 people in the city itself. We have about 2.1 million in the metropolitan statistical area. And after the NFL season ends, basically an XFL team would have very little competition. The only other significant professional sport going on here at that time would be the Indiana Pacers, who have really just moderate popularity here these days. And then we have a minor league baseball team, the Indianapolis Indians, starting in early April. So basically, if we had an XFL team, that would be the main focus, I think, in the city from the beginning of the season until the XFL season ends in early May, which just happens to be the time when people start getting excited about the Indianapolis 500. So it would be really a great way to keep the local sports fans occupied between the NFL and the Indianapolis 500. And football in general is just very big up here. High school football is huge. Indianapolis is actually widely considered one of the top 2 or 3 high school football cities in the country. And the Colts have been packing them in consistently for close to 25 years now. So I think the XFL would go over very well here, and we could play at Lucas Oil Stadium, which is a retractable roof. So weather wouldn't be a problem. So anyway, that's my thoughts about that for now, I'm sure.
All right. Appreciate the phone call. I forgot about the Indianapolis 500 as being a thing that people are going to have to pay attention to in Indianapolis. But yeah, I like the idea. I'm all for the idea of Indianapolis hosting an XFL team. I think that would be, you make a good case. And I tell you, I know these people listen to our show all the time. So clearly, you never know, guys. You never know what's going to happen. James checking in. So Mark, XFL News Hub is great. Thank you very much. Hey, how much fun was it to talk to the reporters here at XFL News Hub about the midweek? Week 5. Whew. They've been busy. And then the thing is, we're going right into the USFL season too. So it's crazy next couple months for us. And then things will kind of chill out. But this is our first time, doing the XFL, then this USFL, and then CFL. So it's been crazy. He says St. Louis for sure wants to be the first XFL franchise to call St. Louis their home, full-time home. We have the facilities to support our Battlehawks all year. Battlehawk Hub is in the St. Louis in 2024. That would be, definitely they have everything that you need for that. That would be an interesting turn of events if they were to allow that. I don't know, financially, I feel like the XFL is going to look the same as it did this year as next year with the same amount of teams. Get kind of like, all right, let's give it one more season. Let's sell more tickets. Let's figure out what we learned from, and move forward. So I'm not sure if we'll see them at home, but clearly St. Louis would be the first. And man, if St. Louis was allowed to have a home area and practice at home, what a huge advantage for them, because there's been chatter from players that the only thing that they don't like, and I get it, is basically every game is a road game. Unless you're playing in Arlington, but it's tough. Guys traveling to Seattle is tough, and traveling from there to DC or from there to Vegas is tough because it's always a road game. I get that part, but we're trying to save money, and that's why the USFL is going to. At least they have the hub model where it's 4 teams, and you kind of travel in and then you travel out. So we'll see. We'll see if that changes in 2020. But I appreciate that James checking in. Jared checking in, sending us some pictures. This is Jared. He says, here are the lines from Camping World Stadium. Booths sold out of many T-shirt sizes. One booth had T-shirts for only XL, and the others only had 2 XL T-shirts available. One picture is a dad and son together on field experience for team warm-ups. The players fist pumps, high fives, throw footballs with fans. I'm in the background by accident on the right. It was a ton of fun. Last picture is my seat, which was fantastic. Hot sun on us till halftime, LOL. At least I didn't get burnt. Thanks for the long-running show. And I will tell you this, Jared. The plan is right now I will be in Orlando to see the Orlando Vipers take on Orlando Vipers. I'm so tired. Orlando Guardians take on the Arlington Renegades. I will be at that game. That is the plan right now, and it is basically 90% chance of happening. So we will see you guys in April to go to a game in Orlando. Super excited to go to Camping World. And Danny Garcia, if I know you listen, so if you want me to hang out in the booth during the game or the press or the box with you and we could talk XFL, I'll be in town. Just kind of letting you know. I'll be in town. All right? All right, let's take another phone call.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for taking my call last week. I called in during the Guardians game. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of this league. I'm not a huge fan of a specific team. I'm just a fan of the league overall. With that being said, I love the St. Louis Battlehawks and the San Antonio Brahmas, as well as, the DC Defenders. And the only team I really can't get behind is Vegas. And I'll tell you why. I understand the allure of moving to Vegas. I really do. Gambling, all that stuff. I don't like their stadium situation. I think it was solved way too late in the process. I think they should have had this done, especially since they knew they were moving to Vegas. With that being said, I don't like the fact that most of these teams are already in NFL markets. I think the smartest strategy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the smartest strategy is for leagues like this to move into markets that don't have football teams. It obviously is working for San Antonio. It is obviously working for St. Louis. It worked in 2020. In 2020 with the Battlehawks. It's worked in all the way back since AAF in the San Antonio Fleet. And the Birmingham Iron, and even in the USFL. Even though it was played in one location, so you can't really make a comparison. But look at the fanfare that the Birmingham Stallions had. I think the smartest thing is to capitalize on markets that don't have football, because these teams, these cities, obviously love football too. I understand moving to Vegas. I understand with gambling and everything, but I don't understand because the NFL already has a corner on a lot of these markets. You got to find teams that don't.
All right, I appreciate the phone call. Yeah, because you get 2 minutes. But I agree. San Diego seems to be the spot. Vegas, are you ever going to have big ticket sales in that stadium for the next 3 years? Why not if you move it to San Diego, would you get a better deal? We'll have to just kind of find out. But they wanted to get there in Las Vegas, and I would say if there was a knock on the league, and part of me I was thinking too, was it done on purpose? It's like we were just going to want to put the product out, not as much fanfare as in 2020, and because everybody got hired at the last minute, and then we didn't get the ticket situation and the stadium situation kind of squared away. Set the bar here so that we have this room to grow here. Is that what the mindset was back then? Even now, I'm still seeing new names pop up and people getting hired and starting, and so I would be stunned if they added 2 more teams or something like that. If I was them, you want to get people excited, you could tease that throughout the whole summer. Once the league season wraps up, we'll see you next year with 10 teams, or something like you say that. You just tease that at the end. And then you bring on 2 other teams. I don't think they're going to do that. I think everything will stay the status quo. I don't think, the business model won't change. I don't think you're going to see teams practicing in their home locations yet. That's just an expense. They're not there right now. Because if they're going to do that, then the season ticket prices are going to have to go up. That's why I think 2 years is the status quo. You notice that the season ticket prices are going to stay the same for the first 2 years. And then when they go up, you get preferred whatever. Blah. I think that's the plan. Status quo. I think what they got to fix is the schedule. I think the USFL has got it right, trying to put more games on broadcast television. That helps us. I'm excited to see how the site does on ABC, but hey, this past week has been rough. I still haven't recovered. I'm staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning one time on Saturday, Thursday night, staying up late, Sunday night, staying up late. Hey, 10:30 is my bedtime. That's the way my dog, Finny Finster, Finn the dog, always goes to bed at 10:30. If you find him in their house, you'll look around, he's sitting in the bed. Not even staying up late because Daddy is staying up late. So definitely the schedule, that's another critique that you could do. But I think that he'll be staying the status quo. But San Diego has to be the main target on the list. All right, finally, we have Don checking in. He has some pictures, the decibel levels. He says, I wanted to show you what the noise was like during this past St. Louis Battlehawks games. Attach a screenshot that shows sustained noise levels during the game. So the first is the opening kickoff. It was 30 seconds long. A max was 90 dB. Average was 87. Yikes. The next was the defender's first drive. You see that the sample was for 678 seconds. That's over 11 minutes. The max, again, 90 dB, and again, the average was 87 dB. That means the dome was allowed on average during that drive as it was for the opening kickoff. The third screenshot shows the Battlehawks drive. First drive, the sample was 194 seconds. Again, max 90 dB, average 83 dB. That's as quiet as we would get with all of the excitement. Very cool pictures. Appreciate that. Defenders played well. Battlehawks shot themselves in the foot with penalties, although some were questionable. We will meet again for the King of the North title. Don checking in. Appreciate the pictures. It just shows you how loud. I mean, it is a great thing that the DC, the St. Louis Battlehawks and DC Defenders, the Battlehawks are a good team. The league really, really needed that going forward, and I'm super excited about the success of those teams. And it was a great game. I'm a DC Defender season ticket holder. I got DC Defenders merch. And at the end of the day, I just want to see the teams win. I don't take it personally if my team wins or loses. I don't win or lose anything if my team wins or loses. I'm just, yay, my team won, cool. And I'm excited because my friends are all getting interested in the XFL. There's a lot of talk. We went to a bar the first game, and people were kind of like, the XFL, what? The second time we went in, we wanted to put the DC Defenders. There was actually people watching the game. Also, the staff knew what we were talking about. People knew about the XFL, and they said, hey, DC is like undefeated, aren't they? Yeah, so I think it's great for the town, and I think this game Monday at 7 p.m. is going to be off the charts. And this is going to decide, is DC the team to beat? And we're taking this the whole season, and we're going undefeated, which I think would be good for the league. Or will, because that just gives something to talk about, or, as the Houston Roughnecks the team to beat. That's what's going to be determined. Who is the top dog is going to be determined this Monday, and who is the potential winner of the championship. The Mark Perry Bowl, the XFL News Hub title, the Mike Mitchell title. We'll have to find out. All right, super long show. Again, I appreciate Evan, Anthony, Pat, Mike Mitchell joining for the show. We could have talked a lot longer about all sorts of stuff going on with the league, attendance and ratings and all this other stuff, but I really just kind of wanted to get their take on what's going on with the season. Remember, if you would like to be part of the show, always email podcast@XFL News Hub with your thoughts, record an MP3 or video on your phone, leave a voicemail, 888-430-7692, extension 3, as always, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And as always, watch the show live at 8 p.m. Eastern every Monday and Thursday on the Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. But I will be recorded. I have a family event this Thursday, a kids event, so we will have the show come out at 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, you're going to want to check out the XFL ladder. That's a lot of fun. How do we take $5 and make it into 10 grand? We started off on the wrong foot, but maybe we're going to start the ladder this week, so stay tuned for that. All right, my friends. Hey, I appreciate everybody sticking on the chat room. God bless you all out there. I appreciate you guys. And that's it for me, folks. God bless as always, and I will see you all later.